In this video, I'm going to be making a birch tree cake. I'm using red velvet cake and then Liz Merrick's Easy Buttercream. I'm also using Esther Holt's cake combs. You can find those at esterscakes.com, and Archon mounts. Here I'm just filling and stacking my tiers. I do use cold cake for stability, and I do refrigerate after I crumb coat before I do my final coat. As I apply my final coat and I get it pretty smooth, I then heat my cake comb under really hot water, and then I dry it off and go over again to make it super smooth. After I finish my final coat, I will refrigerate both tiers. In this case, I just refrigerated them overnight, so they were really firm when I started to decorate them the next day. Here I'm using a Dresden tool to make the log rings on the top of the cake. I start with the outer ring, which will be painted a little bit darker color. I did use reference photos of birch logs to see what it should look like and try to follow them closely. My buttercream was firm, so I did scrape a little bit on top to get the excess buttercream off. After I add my rings around the center, the top of the cake, I then go back and add little details and slits up the side to make it look more realistic. And then once I finish the top of the cake like this, I will get my AmeriColor food coloring. In this case, I used a mixture of regular brown food coloring and the AmeriMist, which is the airbrush color. And this is ivory airbrush color. And I'm going around the outside, and in all the little creases and cracks, I'll do a little bit darker. Here I just add a little bit of vodka to the ivory food coloring just to smooth out the color a little bit because I didn't want it as bright in the center. Now I'm going to go over all the creases again with a dark brown food coloring to increase the contrast. I use my paper towel just to smooth out and clean up the top with all the extra buttercream pieces that may have lifted off the cake. Then I'm using a Wilton marker tool. I adjusted the needles on them to line up with my cake, and then I painted them with some brown food coloring, and I go around the cake. And then I will adjust the needles on there to a different height and go back over it again. I'm adding more food coloring each time, trying to not press too hard because I don't want to gouge into the cake. Here I'm taking my paintbrush and using a little bit more brown to go over some of the lines just to emphasize them a little bit more. And now I have my offset spatula, and I'm adding a little bit more buttercream to make the knots. Just pushing it on there, making like an almond shape, and adding some dark brown in the center of it and light brown around the outside. I did that in a few places. Again, I find it really helpful if you do print out real birch logs. I have actually a piece taped to my kitchen cabinet, and I'm referring to that as I go. There are going to be places where you scraped with the Wilton marker tool that the buttercream looks like it's lifting off. I did go back later and take a paintbrush and just lift off some of those excess pieces of buttercream. Here is my top tier. I'll just repeat the whole process. This is a 6-inch. The bottom one that I just did was an 8-inch. These together will serve 36 people. I use the Wilton wedding sizes for all my serving sizes. It doesn't matter if it's a party cake, wedding cake, anything. My cakes are usually about 5 inches tall, and those are 1 by 2 servings. I do put each tier back in the refrigerator while I'm working on the other so it stays firm. Now I get the 8-inch out and I measure a boba tea straw right in the middle. I take it back out and I cut them all the same length. This will support our top tier. I add a little more buttercream. That way the top tier will have something to stick to. And then I like to fill in the gap here with excess buttercream because nobody wants to see that. So I just shove it in there and smooth it out. Here the bride wanted their initials carved into it, so I use my scribe tool to carve their initials. Then I put a heart around their initials. I come back and I use my Americolor dark brown food coloring to paint in what I etched out. I also like to add ribbon around my cake board. I don't like seeing the cardboard area of it. I usually use cake drums, but I happen to be out at this time. So I do hot glue ribbon around the edge of the board. You will see that coming up. And then I always refrigerate my cakes and deliver them cold. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you have any questions, please message me. And don't forget to subscribe and follow at Mama Ports Cakes.